Hi, I'm Tony Princiotti, and today I want to share some thoughts about contemporary restagings of operas. You know, the type of thing in which a production of Bizet's Carmen opens in the lobby of a Marriott hotel, or Mozart's Don Giovanni is set in a 1940s era Manhattan diner. So first, a little background. This whole concept originated in Germany after World War II with Richard Wagner's grandson Wieland, who was desperate to somehow separate Granddad's operas from the impression that they'd essentially functioned as the soundtrack of the Third Reich. So he produced these very spare symbolic stagings that emphasized universal themes and archetypes. This was the seed for what became known as Regietheater, director's theater, in which directors freely alter stories, locations, and whatever else they need to change in the composer's original work to realize their own vision. Director's theater began to flourish in the early 1970s in response to the radical politics that were engulfing West Germany. An early landmark was the 100th anniversary of the premiere of Wagner's Ring Cycle at the 1976 Bayreuth Festival. That production featured, among other things, the gods being presented as 19th century robber barons and the Rhine maidens cast as sex workers, all in the service of creating an anti-capitalist manifesto. And since Wagner was very much a socialist, the whole concept wasn't necessarily as far-fetched as it might seem. Now, whether this sort of thing works is, of course, a judgment call. I love the open-mindedness and intellectual curiosity it shows, and I'm all for pushing back against this deadly ahistorical tendency to sanctify pieces of classical music. But I've got to say that I've rarely found these productions persuasive, mostly because they never quite escape seeming a bit self-conscious to me. I think theater is at its best when it lures you into this wonderful, slightly altered state. When the production's all about the director's unique vision, I just end up feeling like I'm being messaged at, and messaged at in a particularly clunky way. Now, a lot of this may be due to a conflict that's inherent in director's theater. On the one hand, there's a narrative that necessarily reflects the director's contemporary perspective, and on the other, there are these core elements of a standard repertory opera that inescapably evoke the distant past. You can stage Beethoven's Fidelio in an iPhone factory in north-central China. Imagine the evil Pizarro as a Steve Jobs type. But there's a point where a clever scenario like that is so disjunct from an old German libretto set to music written in the early 1800s that the whole thing starts feeling arbitrary and incoherent. But what do you think? Please comment if you wish. All constructive contributions are welcome. Take care.